For the most of her life, Marie Osmond has been in the public eye. She appeared to have it all, from her days of singing with her well-known family to becoming a big personality on TV. However, a woman with hardships the public never saw was hidden behind the songs and smiles. Tragedies, secret struggles, and heartbreak molded her path in ways that admirers could never have predicted. And at 65, her life no longer resembles the glitzy one we were accustomed to. Come along as we examine her life both today and in the past. Marie Osmond's early years and ascent to prominence. On October 13, 1959, Olive Marie Osmond was born in Ogden, Utah. She was the only daughter in the Big Osmond family and the eighth of 9 children. She was raised as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints by her parents, Olive May and George Verl Osmond. The remainder of her brothers started playing as a barbershop quartet at a young age, although 2 of them, Verl and Tom, were born deaf. Their abilities quickly attracted notice, and in the 1960s they made an appearance on The Andy Williams Show. The family relocated to Los Angeles because of their success, where television and music would soon take center stage in their life. When Marie appeared on The Andy Williams Show for the first time on television in 1964, she was just 4 years old. Marie's life was directly linked to show business, whereas most young girls spent their youth with toys and school courses. She frequently spent time at home with her mother and her younger brothers, Jimmy, Donnie, Tom, and Verl. She felt the closest to Donnie of all her siblings. "Donnie and I were boisterous playmates who never gave our mother a moment to rest," Marie once said. However, childhood was more than just playing. They had always been surrounded by music. Whether it was making music, playing instruments, or singing together. Years later, I fondly recalled that I couldn't recall a day of my early years when music wasn't being performed, practiced, composed, or sung. Marie's journey was very different from the carefree fun that should have characterized childhood. The strain of performance shaped her life. Even before kindergarten, when most kids were solely concerned with their friends or their studies, she was thrust into the spotlight. She was shaped by her early stardom in both positive and negative ways. A demanding and labor-intensive childhood. Marie performed with Andy Williams for the first time when she was barely 3 years old. On stage, she joined him in singing and dancing. Most kids would be anxious, but Marie had no other option. It was the start of a career that would continue relentlessly. When Andy Williams died in 2012, Marie reflected on the occasion and referred to him as a beacon of light in her life. She thanked him for providing her with some of her favorite childhood memories as well as for helping her hone her singing skills. However, life was not as glamorous as it appeared behind the bright lights. According to Marie's memoir, "Might as well laugh about it now," her parents made sure that every Osmond child had access to the best choreographers and tutors available. It was necessary for each sibling to master an instrument before passing it on to the others. The marimba was given to Marie. It didn't matter that she didn't want to play it. She was chosen for her path. In retrospect, Marie talked about how painful it was to grow up in such a demanding society. Additionally, Marie had to deal with the strain of establishing her own musical career as her brothers, who performed as the Osmonds, became well known. Her life will never be the same after what happened next. Teenage celebrity and a breakthrough in country music. The Osmonds, which Marie's brothers had already formed, were enjoying hit after hit by 1970. After witnessing the accomplishment, the family thought Marie could pursue a profession on her own. However, Marie chose to promote herself as a country musician rather than go into pop like her brothers did. At the time, country music was the only genre that allowed women to balance a career and a family, she noted. She recorded a demo of her singing Dolly Parton's Coat of Many Colors even as a tween. After listening to the cassette, MGM Records' Don Ovens was so impressed that he signed her to the Nashville division of the label. Marie's life took a drastic turn when she was just 14 years old. Her rendition of Paper Roses, which she released in 1973, became the #1 hit on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart. She became the youngest female performer to ever have a country hit at the top of the charts as a result. Singles like You're Still New to Me, There's No Stopping Your Heart, and Meet Me in Montana were among the subsequent hits that peaked at the top of the charts. Marie collaborated with Donnie to create the variety show Donnie and Marie in addition to her solo career. The program was a huge hit and ran until 1979, making the two of them well known. However, beneath the giggles, dance moves, and duets, Marie continued to bear the same burdens that had plagued her since she was a young girl. She had everything because of fame, but it also required everything from her. Additionally, she faced additional obstacles in both her personal and professional lives as the 1980s rolled around. Challenges of reinvention and a subsequent career. The Osmond family experienced financial difficulties and lost a large portion of their fortune in the early 1980s. She performed with her siblings to assist, but she also made an effort to go out alone. Although it didn't survive long, she started her own variety program called Marie. After signing with Capitol Records in 1985, she quickly went back to her country roots. It was worthwhile. She achieved another run of #1 hits after releasing the album There's No Stopping Your Heart. By the 1990s, Marie had begun to diversify her business endeavors. On the QVC network, she developed her own line of collector dolls, which quickly gained enormous popularity. In 1994, she also debuted on Broadway in The King and I. When she and Donnie reconnected for a network chat show in 1998 and 2000, she seized the opportunity to candidly discuss postpartum depression, one of her greatest challenges. Her book, Behind the Smile, was published as a result of her candor. She talked about her suffering and her path to recovery in My Journey Out of Postpartum Depression. Marie took on more projects in later years, including her appearance on Dancing with the Stars in 2007 and her radio series Marie and Friends in 2004. She and Donnie got back together in 2008, specifically for a residency at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. Up till 2019, their performance lasted over 10 years, demonstrating that the sibling pair was still adored by fans. Marie was always changing who she was. Her solo albums I Can Do This, 2010, Music is Medicine, 2016, and Unexpected, 2021, marked her comeback. She even starred in a number of Lifetime movies, including the 2020 Christmas edition, and co-hosted The Talk between 2019 and 2020. Marie Osmond has had a long, challenging, and inspirational path, starting as a little child who performed on stage with Andy Williams and ending as a country music artist, Broadway actress, doll designer, and TV host. Speaking of which, she was concealing a serious secret, her battle with eating disorders, behind the smile. She was under a lot of criticism regarding her weight in the 1970s, when the Donnie and Marie show was at its peak. She talked about a single incident that altered everything in an interview with Page 6. She claimed that a studio head grabbed her aside and told her, "You're a disgrace to your family. You're overweight. You can't keep food out of your fat face," thus 250 people were going to lose their jobs. Such words have the power to shatter anyone. And it was crushing for a girl in her teens. Marie described how this incident led her to develop bad habits in her book, Might As Well Laugh About It Now. She acknowledged that she would pretend to eat breakfast and supper, and that she only drank water flavored with lemon juice, cayenne pepper, and maple syrup 4 days a week. "I still didn't think I was skinny enough," she admitted. "Even when my hunger made me too weak to do the show's dance routines." After the show concluded, she continued to suffer. She carried her body image into adulthood. The world became more aware of eating problems after singer Karen Carpenter passed away in 1983. However, it also marked a turning point in Marie's life. She became aware that her fans were being impacted by the way she treated herself. She received letters from women who wanted to know how to appear like her after giving birth. She acknowledged to herself that she needed to change at that point. My perspective on body image was irrevocably altered by what she wrote subsequently. But during those years, she struggled with more than just eating issues. The continual comparison to other celebrities who were dealing with fears in the spotlight caused another pain. With comedy, music, and cameos from some of the biggest performers of the day, the Donnie and Marie program was a huge hit. Although it appeared to be a great job from the outside, Marie frequently felt as though she was working in a nightmare. She was only 16 when the show started, and she subsequently admitted in her biography, Might As Well Laugh About It, that she felt inferior to the glitzy singers and actors around her. One of the experiences that stayed with me the most was meeting Cher. She recalled how her confidence was shaken when she and Donnie appeared as guests on the Sonny and Cher show. I felt like the ugly duckling, she said. Cher always created a stir. I felt like my shyness was going to swamp me no matter what she did. The story didn't end there. Marie appeared on her own stage alongside celebrities including Farrah Fawcett, who had recently gained notoriety for her red bathing suit poster, Jacqueline Smith, and Cheryl Ladd. Raquel Welch also performed with her. A woman renowned for her beauty on a global scale. It was overwhelming for a teenager. Marie clarified, I was in a state of self-loathing just by standing on stage next to Raquel Welch and comparing my appearance to hers. It was rather difficult to feel like anything other than a dress-up imposter as I left my dressing room. Although she appeared self-assured to the audience, she battled self-doubt each time she took the stage. Many kid stars would have been broken by these insecurities alone. However, Marie's difficulties extended into risky situations and situations that no youngster should have had to deal with. Being a child star comes with very hard realities. When Marie was just 3 years old, she began working. She so grew up in a field where kids were frequently treated carelessly. She acknowledged in her autobiography, Behind the Smile, that I was occasionally treated more like a product than a person. She told one particularly startling story. She was transported to Japan at the age of 11 to film a commercial. The unimaginable occurred when the movie was being filmed at sea. The boat flipped over. Abruptly, Marie found herself swimming in a shark-infested ocean. She was fortunately saved, but the ordeal didn't stop there. She was compelled to return to the set in order to continue filming, rather than being sent home. She was fatigued, sunburned, and dehydrated by the end of the week. At the time, kid performers had very little protection, as this was just one example. She also talked about how she was harassed in recording studios, forced to sing or perform without hesitation, and had her thoughts disregarded. In her own words, I gradually came to see and accept that, out of all the people engaged in practically every project, my contribution was the least significant. To make matters worse, her parents' financial advisors squandered their money to the point where the family was on the verge of bankruptcy by the end of the 1970s. The Dottie and Marie program was still on when this occurred. And as a teenager, Marie herself worked 80-hour weeks. She was only entering adulthood when the program was cancelled, but years of arduous work, stress, and wounds that would take decades to heal had already molded her life. Years later, Marie courageously shared her agonizing secrets and near-death experiences, further deepening those wounds. Fans were stunned by the comments Marie wrote in her book Behind the Smile. Abuse can take many different forms. The physical abuse she experienced as a child was the most harmful to her. She merely clarified that it was not her family, but she never provided any information regarding who was at fault. She clarified that she was threatened with losing everything if she told her parents about her abuser, who was always someone they thought was safe. She kept it a secret for years, even from her brothers. She didn't tell anyone the truth until she had her own kids. She carried the scars of maltreatment into adulthood. In her article, she discussed the crippling impact that abuse has on people's spirits and daily functioning. She said that even after several decades, she still found it difficult to comprehend that being wrong does not imply wrongdoing. She never quite recovered from the sorrow of those memories, but she faced more than just emotional struggles. She was in a horrible vehicle accident when she was only 16 years old. She abruptly passed out while driving. It was a serious crash. Marie almost lost her eye when she struck the steering wheel so forcefully that it bent. When her mother, who was accompanying her, struck the windshield, her lungs collapsed. Marie was informed that her mother might not make it through the night after they were both taken to the hospital. According to Marie, who was lying in the hospital, she was overcome with guilt. Years later on the program, she admitted, "You feel like you've taken your mom's life." However, an odd incident occurred that reassured her. She claimed to have seen her grandfather in a vision. If he had come to take her mother away, she asked him. No, he replied simply, assuring her that her mother would not be departing. According to Marie, it changed my life in a lot of ways. Marie saw her mother's survival as evidence that there was indeed serenity after death. Marie Osmond's life was never easy, filled with mistreatment, mishaps, celebrity, and terror. Each anecdote, however, demonstrates not only her hardships but also the resilience she maintained into old age. Marriage, family, and love. In her private life, Marie Osmond has experienced loss, love, and second chances. She was briefly engaged to Jeff Creighton, an acting student, in May 1979, but their engagement ended after just 2 months. She briefly dated John Schneider in 1981 after dating musician Andy Gibb around the same period. She wed her first spouse, Brigham Young University basketball player Stephen Lyle Craig, in 1982. The marriage ended in divorce, but they did have a son, Stephen James Craig, in 1983. The pair was divorced in 1985. "Steve and I tried multiple times to save our fledgling marriage, but it didn't work out," he wrote later. "The paparazzi appeared everywhere I went, and I was the subject of tabloid scrutiny. I was worn out on an emotional level." In 1986, Marie wed Brian Blossel, a record producer. His caustic style of humor appealed to her. Following their encounter at a family gathering, together, they had 7 children, 5 adopted children, Jessica, Michael, Brandon, Brianna, and Abigail, and 2 biological children, Rachel and Matthew. However, the marriage terminated in 2007 after 21 years. In a unified statement, they claimed that no one was at fault, but the reality was more nuanced. Later, Marie acknowledged that it was preferable for her kids to witness their parents' separation rather than grow up in a household where 2 adults were really unhappy. She declared to the world after her divorce that she had no intention of getting married again. However, love came to her in a surprising way. Her son set up a meeting between her and Steve Craig, her first husband. After rekindling their romance and 2 years of covert dating, they eventually were married again in 2011. Marie wore her 1982 wedding gown when she walked down the aisle in the Mormon temple in Las Vegas. "The thing about a second marriage is that you realize things you thought were so important aren't," she later told People magazine. "I enjoy spending time with my spouse. I have never met a sweeter man than him. He truly listens to people's needs and lives for service." However, tragedy struck her family in a way that no mother ever wishes to experience, even as she found happiness once more in love. Loss of a son and heartbreak. Michael, Marie Osmond's 18-year-old son, committed suicide in 2010. Her family was distraught and her followers were surprised by the news. Marie gradually revealed what had transpired. During the conversation, she disclosed that he had been subjected to severe bullying until he killed himself because to his sobriety. "The texts are with me. They're terrible." Although she acknowledged that she never spoke to the bullies, she wished their brutality had repercussions. However, the heartache didn't stop there. Only 1 week after his funeral, Marie decided to go back to work. She was shamed by many for not taking more time off, and she was assaulted for it. "I did it for my other children," she explained. She wished to demonstrate to them that life must continue even in the most dire circumstances. She was still burdened by his loss years later. 9 years after Michael's passing, she admitted on CBS Sunday Morning, "I don't think you're ever through it. I believe that when God gives you a break, it will strike you again like it did the day before. What you leave behind has a significant knock-on impact." Those statements demonstrated how grief never truly goes away. It never goes away, but it changes shape. Although Marie had already faced several hardships in her life, she was going to encounter yet another one that would impact not only her but also her kids. Battling depression after giving birth. In her 2001 book Behind the Smile, Marie Osmond highlighted postpartum depression, a condition that was not widely talked about at the time. She talked about how having birth left her feeling empty and like a failure in the book. She described how her grief had become a part of her everyday life and that her kids would check on her before ever talking to her. She related how she was greeted with baked pastries by a neighbor and replied that all she wanted was to be left alone. The depression was severe. At one point, she said she had to go and gave her baby in blank checks to her babysitter. Later, she wrote, "There is no light, no joy anywhere in me," as she climbed into her car and drove up the Pacific Coast Highway. "I'm completely alone." She even admitted that she understood why someone would take their own life because the only emotions she felt were negative ones. Looking back in a 2023 interview, she explained that her choice to write the book was about breaking the silence for women everywhere. But even as she spoke about her depression, she also faced criticism for the way she loved and supported her own daughter. Love, acceptance, and cruel reactions. In 2013, Marie Osmond sat down with Diane Sawyer. During the interview, she spoke about her daughter, Jessica, who had come out as gay. For Marie, there was never a question of love. She said it broke her heart, not because of who her daughter was, but because she knew how cruel the world could be. Marie has always been outspoken about marriage equality. She told Sawyer, "My daughter deserves everything she desires in life. She's a good girl. She's a wonderful child. I don't think God made one color flower, I think He made many." On the talk, she also described the cruelty she faced after attending her daughter's wedding. Her message was simple. You should never shame anyone, especially for loving your child. Unfortunately, not everyone in her own family agreed. Her brother, Alan Osmond, condemned being gay as a choice and even hosted an event in Utah called Celebration of Marriage. Every child deserves a mom and a dad. Despite the backlash, Marie stood firm. She reminded the world that love should never be conditional. She believed that her daughter and every child deserved happiness. But her own family's rejection showed how difficult it can be to live by that belief. And still, through heartbreak, depression, and tragedy, Marie Osmond continued to stand as a mother who put love above everything else. But did you know that Marie Osmond has faced more tragedy than most people could ever imagine? A family marked by loss. In 2004, she and her siblings lost their beloved mother, Olive. She had suffered a stroke 2 years earlier and complications finally took her life. Just 3 years later in 2007, their father George also passed away at the age of 90. These losses were difficult, but sadly, they were not the end of heartbreak for the Osmond family. In 2014, tragedy struck Marie's brother Jay's family. His 7-year-old granddaughter was killed in a horrific accident when she was crushed by the door of a moving truck. The family was devastated, and the pain only grew in 2022, when the little girl's father, Chris Mortensen, was shot and killed in a road rage incident. The accused was arrested, but the loss left another scar on the family. In 2018, more grief came when Marie's 33-year-old nephew suddenly died, most likely from an undiagnosed medical condition. Speaking at the funeral, Marie's words showed her deep understanding of grief. She said, "I know that feeling of utter despair, praying to wake up from a horrible nightmare and not being able to breathe. I remember that seemingly impossible task to continue on. These painful experiences would have been enough to break anyone, but Marie's heart was tested again with the loss of someone who had been by her side her whole life, her brother Wayne, saying goodbye to Wayne Osmond." On January 1, 2025, Wayne Osmond passed away after suffering a massive stroke. For Marie, the pain was almost too much to put into words. She shared her feelings on Instagram, explaining that she had been taking a break from social media, but felt she had to honor him. She recalled that just a few weeks before his death, she had felt a strong need to visit him. "I really felt the Spirit compel me to go see him, and I'm so thankful I listened to what I was feeling. I will cherish those hours I spent with him for the rest of my life. I didn't know that just a few days after my visit, he would have a massive stroke." Marie admitted that since Wayne's death, she hadn't been able to do interviews or speak much publicly, saying, "The truth is, it's just too hard to put into words." She claimed that his death left a huge void in her heart and described him as one of the most caring guys she had ever met. In addition to being a gifted performer, Marie recalled Wayne as her brother, her confidant, and the person she turned to for lengthy chats and guidance. She commended his loyalty to his children and grandchildren as well as his affection for his wife, Kathy. "Wayne, I could not cherish the gift God gave me more than to be loved by you in this life," she said as she concluded her homage. "You are a really devoted brother, and I shall really miss you. With all of my heart and soul, I bear witness to my unending love for you." As they recalled Wayne's legacy and a new chapter in their lives, the Osmond family stood united in sorrow. Marie made a sincere comeback to social media in April 2025. Acknowledged that she had taken a temporary break to spend time with her family and to follow her intuition about God's will. She stated, "I've always put my family first, and this season has given me some amazing and special moments with them. She described how removing herself from the spotlight had allowed her to lead what she described as the most normal existence of her life. Marie, who has been performing since she was 3, chuckled that she had never really understood what normal was. She did, however, embrace the delight of spending time with her kids and grandkids. She told a tale that demonstrated how important this was to her. Marie immediately responded yes when her daughter called in a frenzy to ask if she could pick up her granddaughter from school. She was extremely moved by her daughter's response. "Having you here and available is so pleasant. I sincerely appreciate your assistance today. It means the world to me." Marie said those words meant more than any award or accolade she had ever received. Her post was filled with gratitude and faith. She reminded her followers that life is about choices, about love, and about service. She wrote that challenges can make us better people if we let them, teaching humility, compassion, and strength. By striving to hear Him, we grow daily in faith and see how God's unconditional love creates daily miracles for us, she shared. She also spoke about her continued work with the Children's Miracle Network, which she co-founded. She celebrated its 42nd anniversary and paid tribute to her dear friend, Joe Lake, one of the co-founders who had recently passed away. "He was a man full of love and compassion for others and had a heart totally dedicated to service," she wrote. Through her message, she reminded everyone that service and love are the greatest gifts in life. She closed by thanking her fans, calling them family, and reminding them how much she loved them. In her words, "Honestly, you have blessed me so much more than I could ever have done for you. Your family, never ever forget that and how much I love you." Which part of Marie Osmond's life story surprised you the most? Her struggles, her family tragedies, or how she lives today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.